following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to V8 Online's coverage of the Monday night V8 Supercar Strength of Field series, live here on the iRacing Esports Network. We make our way from the concrete jungle of Detroit Belle Isle over to Brazil for 32 laps at the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache circuit for the all-important round number 8. And why is 8 rounds so important? Well, if you have completed every single race in this season so far and finish here tonight, you'll be able to play it more aggressive in the last 4 rounds and maximize your championship points from your best 8 rounds. In other words, this is the beginning of where we really find out where drivers stack up in this season's championship. It's game time here on Monday nights. I'm Bo Albert, here in the commentator's booth with Mr. Zachary Hanlon alongside me, with Jay Kennedy pressing some buttons, making random Scafey quotes in the YouTube chat, and probably drinking from a glass with an umbrella in it all at once. But Zach, after last night's round of Scops, which was arguably the most entertaining round of the season by far, whichever way you look at it, whether that be for overtakes or for championship-changing drama, this is a circuit that requires a perhaps higher level of aggression than most other circuits, a circuit where to make a pass, you have to be 110% committed, and worst case scenario, you're willing to get the elbows out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, during the Porsche Super Cup race a few weeks ago, I made a fair few moves. Really liked the outside line through turns 6 and 7 round here. But the great thing about Interlagos in that respect is that, you know, there's only really one line that is fast. But if you can get your door up beside another bloke coming into a corner, you can use a couple of different alternate lines and maybe play it to your advantage for the next few corners that are coming up. So be a bit of a chess game this evening for a few of our drivers, and with the low track temp tonight, only 28 degrees track at the moment. We may see that rise as the race progresses slightly. That's going to play very importantly into the strategy for tonight, which is basically save your tires and make sure you don't run out of fuel, because we've got full tanks in tonight, so no pit stops will be anticipated. So these guys are really going to have to look after these Dunlops tonight and make sure that they can get to the end with a bit of tread left.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is a circuit where traction is so critical, so you don't want to be eating those tires up too quickly, too early. But with that topic of fuel as well, I think that's going to be a big topic as well tonight, because even though no pit stops required, they're not going to have to be taking any more on board. It's not exactly a full tank you need. You may be able to save about 5 or 6 litres, so will drivers potentially be a little bit short at the start of the race and fuel save to the end? Fuel could still be critical, but right now the critical thing is qualifying, and Sam Blacklock is doing a good job of that at the moment at the top of the timesheets with a 32.3 over Forzan El Nabi, who of course won't be doing a second lap by the looks of it, but did get a very nice result last night out in V8 Scops. Won't try and spoil that too much, but he's a driver on form at the moment and will be looking for a really good result. But a lot of drivers still yet to get a lap time on the board. One of which drivers is Kazuki Umeshima, who returns for a second round in the Radicals Online car, coming around for his first lap now along this really long straight here, Zach, which in the V8 Supercar can be a little bit treacherous because these cars are not particularly stable at the rear of at high speed, so they can get a little bit sideways if you're close behind another car in front.
Yeah, and I think we might see quite a bit of that towards the later stages rather of the race tonight. We might see some guys, as it says on the side of Umashima's car, 6 sideways. So definitely be looking forward to watching that tonight. But yeah, it really depends on how much risk these guys are willing to take with the traction. And you know, in most cars, that corner would probably be flat. I mean, I haven't driven around here personally myself. Some guys might have to do a small lift through there with the lock differentials in these cars. Very pushy on power, and they don't have a lot of aerodynamic effects. So, as you were saying, not particularly effective at high speed. So, I think quite a few guys will get caught out by that this evening, and we might see some people running wide through there. Luckily, it's fairly easy to save it, but you will have to get out of the throttle. And that could definitely put you at a massive disadvantage to some of your opponents. Looks like just out on track right now, few people still getting their laps in, but a lot of drivers seeming to not elect to take a second lap. It seems like everyone is pretty much decided that lap number 1 is the one to get in for.
Absolutely. Looks like that's where the grip is at its best. Michael Talianchi is one of the drivers going for a second lap. We'll see if he does improve in the Pursuit sim racing car and no slower. So the drivers who are electing to do just a single run might be onto something, because this is a very high demand circuit on the tires where there's a lot of quick corners where the front tires get worked. There's a lot of slow corners where the traction gets worked as well. Jacob Knight comes across the line, and he's one of the rare few drivers that will improve on his second lap, but only enough to jump him up 2 spots. So this circuit really punishing the tires in qualifying, let alone the race. So that is not boding well for these drivers at the end of 32 laps here today. 28-degree track temp, like you mentioned. So a little bit nicer than they perhaps could have been. It could have been a lot worse with a 32-degree track or something like that. But Corey Preston, a driver coming across the line for his very first lap now, so not got a time on the board, and we'll see where he goes. Currently at the bottom of the timesheets, gets himself up to P number 17, which is perhaps a little bit lower than he would have liked, and he might just be able to squeeze in this lap because he crosses the line with a minute 33. Minute 33 is the times we're seeing here, Zach.
Yeah, I think he's just going to make it, although if he runs a little bit wide through one of these corners, he's going to have to give it up. But Corey Preston definitely will be using as much of the road on this occasion as he can, because 17th position is not where we would really expect him to be, although we do have a very strong field here tonight, and a lot of people still very much in practice from the V8 Scops race yesterday. So definitely harder to push yourself up the field. And of course, you know, when you have a lot of drivers from V8 Scops here, I mean, right now, in fact, Blacklock and El Nabi have Blacklock actually has a pretty good advantage over everybody right now, sitting roughly 3 tenths ahead of the rest of the field. But 4th through to 16th, all covered by just half a second, and 4th to a 10th covered by pretty much a 2 tenths. And Corey Preston has made a bit of a whoopsie on that one. Hopefully, the Australian government have run out of funding for the space program this evening, and there are very few walls around here as well. So hopefully Corey Preston doesn't make any attempts to go off into space this evening. But looks like that will conclude qualifying. A couple of other cars still going around, but the checkered flag has waved. And would you like to take us away with our grid tonight, Bo?
Absolutely. That's a pretty packed field. 28 cars taking to Interlagos here tonight, but leading them all away will be Sam Blacklock, who is fighting for his first official series championship, and he does it in convincing style ahead of Forzan El Nabi, a driver on form after last night. Brett Loxton will also put in a fantastic performance last night. He lines up in 3rd with Sam Sutton and Jordan Ross, your top 5. Kazuki Umeshima going to kick things off from P number 6. Riley Blythe had a personal best finish last night out. Can he improve on that tonight? He's going to be starting from P number 7. Brian Borg from P8 with Scott Zaslowski and Brady Myers, your row number 5.
And then we have Steve Jansen coming out of position number 11, Marie Hrushka in position number 12. Carl Stokes in 13, Craig Jones out of 14th position. Jacob Knight will take you from 15th, and Lee Ellis will take up the last place on the 7th row of the grid. Corey Preston out of 17th. He'll look to move his way forward alongside Michael Taliarcic, who might play some... he's not going to be able to play fuel strategy tonight, so he'll have to do it all on track. Wayne Taylor in 19th. Chris Coxhead in 20th position. Then we have, to round out our 28-car grid, Reese Keane, Jamie McKnight, Greg Sharp, David Miller, Matt Morris, Thomas McMillan, Brendan Jackson, and Tiago Carvalho. So going to be a very interesting race tonight. Pretty long one too, about 50 minutes. So going to have to really be patient at the beginning here, boys. We saw a bit of biffo last night, so let's see if we can keep it a little bit cleaner.
Absolutely, that is the question, and this is not a very forgiving turn 1, 2, and 3 here at Interlagos, and very easy to get caught up in an incident as we did see it last night. But right now, the focus goes to the revs rising as we get ready for 32 laps here at Interlagos, and it's a great start from Sam Blacklock, who will immediately go into your race lead. Forza Al Nabi just behind, trying to make something into P number 2. Looks like he'll be able to secure that as they all funnel their way into turn number 1, then flick right to turn number 2. A very complex section, so then get on the power for turn number 3. And so far, it all looks pretty good for 28 V8 Supercars here at Interlagos, but there is a very big braking zone coming up at turn number 4. Is anyone going to be brave? They're feeling brave in the mid-pack as they go almost 3 wide. Kazuki Umeshima tries to defend from Riley Blythe heading into turn number 4. He will be able to hold on to that. Ryan Borg gets past Brady Myers as well, as they all slowly funnel their way now into this very tricky uphill section here at Interlagos, where you have to be very, very forgiving to the car in front. Riley Blythe and Umeshima still going at it, and Umeshima very wide, could come under a little bit of pressure from Sislowski here, and he gets pushed out as well. Big sideways moment, 6 sideways if you will. Side by side still is Sislowski trying to make something of it, but the outside is going to be very vulnerable at this point in the circuit, and Brian Borg thinks about getting a move but can't make it happen.
Yeah, good clean start by all these guys. And oh, just as we're saying that, I think that was Brady Myers going on the inside of turn number 10 there. And he has potentially a slowdown because of that as well. We'll see if we can get a replay for you in a moment of that. It looks like he might have just locked up a little bit there. He was coming into turn number 10 as, just locked the rear brakes and spun himself around all by himself. So he'll have a lot to do from there. But I think these guys are fairly well practiced from last night, and that's why we've seen a good start. But Forzan Al Nabi now going round the outside, or attempting to, on Sam Blacklock, and he's picking up the pace, and he wants to get something done as Sam Sutton goes through on Jordan Ross. And now Riley Blythe is going to try and maybe make a bit of something out of this. He's got rid of the matte purple wheels for tonight's race. Maybe that'll bode well for him, tucking in right under behind Jordan Ross. Going to dart to the outside, going to make Jordan take the non-preferred shallow line into the corner. Riley taking some nice entry speed through there, going to try and go for a nice exit, but Jordan Ross seems to have covered that off pretty nicely, and Riley Blythe's going to have to find somewhere else to have a bit of a go.
Yeah, another driver in trouble is Marie Hrushka. Started the lap in 10th place at the moment, currently finds herself in 18th as Forzan Al Nabi thinks about the inside of Sam Blacklock side by side in this tricky section of corners at the moment. Blacklock able to hold onto it for now, but the vulnerability has already been proven by Forzan Al Nabi as he thinks about it up the inside once again, not quite able to get the overlap, though. He makes contact with Blacklock, and he will go through now, but that was a bit of contact, a bump and run, but it doesn't look like he's got any interest at all of giving that one back up. And now Blacklock has to be careful because Brett Loxton has a lot of pace around this circuit. So what Sam Blacklock had in qualifying, that brutal pace to run away from the field in qualifying, has not translated to the race and is already looking vulnerable with a bit of damage now to the side of his car. It's not terrible, but it might just be enough to allow Loxton in the coming laps to have a run on him, Zach. Yeah, definitely. And look, honestly, I think that move from Forzan there was a little bit cheeky. It wasn't really quite there. And I don't really think he probably should have taken that position, but luckily for him, no live race control here, so he's going to have to now use what he has and make a bit of a gap on this field. But you're right, Sam Blacklock is going to probably come under a bit of pressure from Brett Loxton and Sam Sutton as well, and Riley Blythe still having a look on Jordan Ross as they fire down into turn number 4 here. Going to try go for the same move. Not quite having the exit momentum that he would have wanted there, but
still looking very good in that dark purple ERT machine as he hounds the back of Jordan Ross. But I think, oh, and Sam Blacklock has just returned the favor on Forzan now, and Brett Loxton's going to try and make something out of it. He dives up the inside at turn number 9. He's going to have to go tough around the outside at 10 though. Might try go for a wide, deep line, cut back in under and make something else work. He has tried, but unfortunately Sam Blacklock was able to cover him back off. So Sam running a little deep into the corner, maybe on purpose there, giving Forzan a bit of a bump and saying, hey mate, that was not on. I reckon that we're going to have words to say about this later. And so if Sam does manage to pick up the pace a little bit and get back up to Forzan, he might regret not giving that position back.
Huge accident in the background, and Craig Jones is potentially around in the middle of the track on the straight. Collected by another CMR car, one of the LeBlanc cars. Jacob Knight involved as well. And that was all the way from the final corner with a failed move by Stevie Anson and Brady Myers. And this is a big crash that's taken a lot of victims here, Zach.
And Michael Taliancic came in at the tail end of that, and we were talking about the cars not being able to turn very well through there. Well, he actually got a bit of a hip and shoulder from Thomas McMillan and has ended up in the wall as well. But yeah, that's a very unfortunate place to have an accident, coming up blind over the hill, and several cars involved, as you said, including both those CMR cars. And that is going to be lots of damage to all those vehicles. But we will take you back live now because there are some good battles.
He's got into El Nabi, almost turned him. He's through now. He's got the position locked it up the inside as well. But this is getting very dicey at the front of the field. They're getting ultra aggressive, and Loxton fires it around the outside of El Nabi so late on the brakes, and he's actually held it around the outside. Gives him the inside along this long left-hander, which he will be able to get done. And El Nabi on the marbles can't steer the car how he would like. And Sam Sutton almost thought about it, but Blacklock and Forzan El Nabi going at it, gloves are off, and Zach, it's lap 4 of 32.
Yeah, well, I did say that Forzan might regret not giving that position back, and there he is, back in position number 3. And I gotta say, kudos to Sam, because he was a long way back, and I think that he was, Loxton's gonna have a bit of a move now. And we're just hearing as well, and looking at the timing, that Umashima has set the fastest lap of the race, so he's coming too. But now we have a train of 7 cars for the lead. And I mean, really at this point, it could be any one of these guys taking each checkered flag, because we still have 28 laps to go. And all of these guys are looking very good. Riley White still looking for that move on Jordan Ross. Again, not able to do anything. Umashima coming up behind and is going to have something to say about that very soon as well. And Sam Sutton, another driver who's has the potential to get up in there and make a difference. But Loxton and Blacklock looking very good now, and Ross going for a bit of a look. Oh, sorry, Umashima looking around the outside of Blythe down into turn number 8 there, not able to do anything. But that's allowed Scott Cisłowski to tag on the back now, so we have an 8-car train for the lead. And yeah, no one is holding back right now.
No, absolutely not. And speaking to Sam Blacklock before the race, he did do a previous race of this series with Brett Loxton, and he said that Brett Loxton had very strong pace in the opening 10 laps of this race, but started to fade towards the end of the race. So if I was Brett Loxton, you know that in the previous race, Blacklock had a lot more pace in the second half of the race. You've got to make a move soon. So I reckon we could still see even more fireworks. And you can see the slipstream effect as they head into turn number 1. We've seen this a few times. Loxton forced to go on the outside, but not able to make anything happen just about yet. But if he gets a little bit better of a run through the final corner, and he's able to carry all that speed up the hill through those fast little kinks, he's got every chance of making a move on the number 7 Sam Blacklock car at the moment. But at the moment, it is Blacklock who still leads ahead of this massive train, as they're all just trying to figure out where their pace is relative to each other. As a train with Brian Borg slowly beginning to catch at the moment, is almost up to 9.
Yeah, I know. The more that these guys carry on fighting with each other, the more people they're opening up to potentially win this race. Although it does look like Kyle Stokes has a little bit of a ways to catch up to the rest of this pack before he's going to have much to do with the battle for the lead. But up the front, they are looking very, very tight. And Forzan El Nabi has a little bit of damage to that rear quarter. where he got a tap from Blacklock. And he also has Sam Sutton looking very racy on the heels, and he's being pushed on by Jordan Ross, and Riley Blythe catching back up to Jordan after falling back a tiny bit after being attacked by Umashima. So I think we might see a few things happening as we come up into turn number 1 this time round. Lots of cars getting nice exits there. Nobody really stepping out too much. So who's going to have the best slipstream? I'd say of anyone, Brett Loxton's going to be the one to make a move. He's got a good run now. He's coming. The overspeed's there. Blacklock goes to the inside. And Forzan Al Nabi just looking now, seeing how this is going to play out. Is he going to try and go down the inside of and get a better run through turn number 2? He is. And that's going to, Loxton now really going to have to worry about El Nabi. But Blacklock's checked up as well. And El Nabi is now going to come with a double slipstream, go to the outside. We're going to see Loxton try and go around the outside for the lead. Can he do it? Not quite right now. He's going to have to go for some nice traction on the exit. Oh, there's contact, they're off! And Sam Blacklock has been speared off the side.
And it's not over, 3 wide! 3 wide heading towards the right-hander. And who's going to win? It's Loxton on the inside, Sutton in the middle, El Nabi on the outside. And I think El Nabi might just be able to hold strong on the outside, but Loxton still holding strong on the inside. On the brakes, not locking it up at all, and hasn't quite cleared El Nabi, so they're still side by side, as is Sutton and Riley Blythe. This battle pack still going on. Sam Blacklock at the back of it fighting with Brian Borg, but we do have just about a new race leader. Brett Loxton fought so hard for it. He's got the lead, but Jordan Ross thinks about 2nd place himself, trying to go around the outside at the fast left-hander on El Nabi, not able to do it, but still going to keep it very, very close as Sislowski trying to get past Umashima, not able to do it on the outside, opens himself up to attack from Blacklock. So they're going to go side by side along this long straight with lots of Kingston uphill as well. So that going side by side could mean cars can get unsettled, and you can see Sislowski just wobbling just a little bit uphill here, not able to get the power down as nice as he wants. As El Nabi thinks about the lead into turn number 1, dives to the brakes so late, ultra committed, almost contact. There is contact now. This is unbelievable stuff.
Oh, mate, some of these guys are not going to finish the race. Jordan Ross checks up massively, and now Sam Sutton's going to go around the outside. Riley Blythe would have been there, but had to give up all his momentum, and now Umashima's going to have a look around the outside of Blythe. Sutton coming across, covering off Ross, and a bit of a tap there, and Sutton's Oh, he's just managed to save it. Excellent car control there. Riley Blythe's going to come under. He's going to say, I've been waiting for Ross to get out of the way, and he's going to try and do it. Going to try and hold it round the outside, but unfortunately, Jordan Ross just has some great speed. And now Umashima's going to go up the inside at turn number 5, and it's all happening now. Umashima's still not quite able to get past Blythe, doing a good job round the outside, committing to the inside of the next corner. And Loxton and El Nabi still not sorted either. These guys are darting round on each other. It's just going absolutely off right now. And Sam Sutton now is going to be holding up this pack a little bit. And if Brett Loxton and Forzan are smart, they might just save grace and plot away for a lap or two here before they keep battling. But as you said earlier, Loxton's got to get going because his pace is going to start dropping off in theory in the next few laps. And he's going to want to be in the lead of this race when it happens. But as you can see now, big gap from second to third after they were all so tight. And Loxton probably going to have a fire down the inside here as well, deciding to tuck in and keep that advantage that they have. But Jordan Ross isn't going to wait. He's going to come through on Sam Sutton, who gets the undercut done. And then Riley Blythe. Oh! Big contact for Riley Blythe, and he's in the wall. And that's going to be significant damage for him and many positions lost. But now Jordan Ross is going to have to defend from Sam Blacklock, who has already made his way through most of this pack. Can he go around the outside? No, but he'll try go for the over-under, get some nice straight traction as they come out of turn number 4 through 5 and up into 6. Not going to be able to do it, but this train is just absolutely crazy right now. I don't think some of these guys are going to finish this race because the incident count surely has got to be up there.
Absolutely. On 17 incidents as Blacklock dives up the inside of Jordan Ross. They are not calming down whatsoever. So Jordan Ross down in position, down to the pin number 5, I think it is. So he's lost spot. Umashima now looking threatening into the grass as well, trying to get a little bit of a run into this hairpin. but things are slowly calming down. Touch wood at the moment, as these guys have well and truly left Sam Sutton out by himself, as well as Loxton and El Nabi. So because of all this fighting, they've completely left everyone else go. But Sam Blacklock now finds himself at the head of this train. And he was, of course, our pole sitter and early race leader. So we know his car is paced, but it also has damage now. Well, I say his car is damaged. Just about everyone's car, I think, has damage at this point. None more so than Riley Blythe, unfortunately. But he is still continuing. But Brett Loxton now thinking about it into turn one, not able to do it as El Nabi continues to lead. And on that last lap, they were 0.3 of a second quicker than Sam Sutton, but 0.6 quicker than Blacklock because of all that fighting, which is still going to continue because now Umashima has a very nice run out of turn number 3 sideways though on the exit, which might just kill his momentum at having a shot at Jordan Ross into turn number 4. Thinks about it, doesn't go for it at all. So for the first time in probably about 4 or 5 laps, there hasn't been a move into turn number 4, and this battle pack able to just settle down a bit. But Zach, at the start of this broadcast, we said tyres and looking after them would be so critical. Where's the tyre saving?
Yeah, everyone's just completely thrown that out of the window. Although I do have to say, given that we're 10 laps into this race, the lap times are not looking too shabby compared to what they started off. For reference, Forzan El Nabi's best lap so far at 33.9. His last lap at 34.3, so that's only 0.4 of a second off of his best lap, which is not as dramatic as we have seen in other rounds where perhaps they're going a second to even a second and a half slower after 10 odd laps. But Kazuki Umashima getting it very, very sideways as he comes through the penultimate corner, and he's gonna have to worry probably about Scott Kozlowski behind, because he's going to have a nice draft, and Umashima just a little bit far behind from Jordan Ross now to be doing anything, which I'll say for the sake of my voice, I'm quite pleased about. And Brett Loxton just continuing to plod along behind Forzan El Nabi now. They are lapping within hundredths of a second of Sam Sutton, who's following them very intently behind, and also hundreds ahead of Sam Blacklock, who's trying to catch these guys as well. But I think everyone now just trying to get their heads down. The wrath of the start has kind of fallen over, and now it's time for everyone to jump in and strap themselves in for a bit of a longer run, and probably one that's going to be a little more or less intense in terms of passing, but more intense in terms of hitting their marks and making sure that they're doing their jobs right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just having a look at our YouTube chat, and the Lee Ellis fan club is well and truly out tonight with a lot of support for the driver in the number 4 car. And just for an update on him, he's in P11, but he has Riley Blythe just in front of him. And of course, we saw Riley get that big hip check at turn number 2, so he's got a lot of damage. So Lee Ellis actually has a very big opportunity here to find his way past down the straight, because Riley Blythe's car not looking pretty in any way, shape or form. So he's going to come under so much pressure because his car is going to have no straight line speed, but Lee Ellis probably not going to be close enough on this time. So the Lee Ellis fan club might have to wait for just another lap here, Zach.
Yeah, Riley Blythe taking a very nice line through the penultimate corner as well there. Turn number, well, it's not really the penultimate corner, but it may as well be. Turn number 12 there. Getting some very nice traction, and you can see Lee falling behind. But back towards the front, Jordan Ross and Kazuki Umashima are having it on. And Umashima using his many years worth of excellent racecraft to his advantage, trying to get some nice exit speed out of turn number 2, or turn number 3 rather, not quite able to do it. Jordan Ross going for the defensive line, probably would have stayed where he was if I was him, but gets a nice exit nonetheless. Kazuki now gonna have to go one way or another. He's gonna go down the inside, backs out of it. He was very committed to going to the inside there, but Jordan Ross cut him off, and he decided to bail out of the move completely. So Kazuki's gonna have to find another way round. This is a good opportunity now, because Jordan Ross doesn't look particularly comfortable through this slow speed section, and Umashima's front of his car and the rear of his car not working to exactly the standard he would prefer, getting a little bit taily on those exits, and also seemingly understeering quite heavily in the mid corner as well. So Kazuki, maybe you need to play with your bars a little bit, mate, so that you can make a bit of a move work here. But two very different lines coming through that corner as well. But Jordan Ross able to maintain that advantage, and Kazuki now starting to get a little bit of speed, but I think it's a little bit too late unless he goes for a very late move down the inside of turn 1. We did see him pulling some very spectacular moves last time out at Detroit, and he is looking more comfortable now than Jordan Ross, but just not able to make anything work at the moment.
No, not at all. And even Scott Zalowski looked like he had a bit of a better run through that final corner, but wasn't able to do it. But at the moment, Riley Blythe is coming under pressure because the fan club is about to erupt because Lee Ellis has a fantastic run out of turn number 3. Blythe defends all the way to the inside. Ellis follows him, but eventually has to move back to the racing line. Ellis slots it up the inside, and he's got the preferred line, but he doesn't have the preferred cornering speed. Riley Blythe around the outside, able to hold it, so the fan club gonna have to wait just a few more corners. But with that damage, I think it's more of a test of time than if Riley Blythe is going to lose that spot to Lee Ellis. And I think down that long front straight is where he's most vulnerable. But Lee Ellis still going to look everywhere else, including the slow speed section of corners. And he's right underneath the rear wing of the Evolution Racing Team Falcon at the moment. No way through. Riley Blythe knows this circuit well, and coming off a personal best finish last time out in the V8 Scops Championship, he's got a lot of confidence as well, so knows how to fight, knows what he's doing. But at the moment, Lee Ellis thinks about the inside, almost gets his nose cut off there by Riley Blythe, as now all Lee Ellis has to do just about is get a nice run onto this straight, and he's just about got it. Blythe probably got the better exit, but now the slipstream effect is going to come into play, and you'll just see that Trans-Tasman Racing Momo car bit by bit begin to creep up underneath the rear of the Evolution Racing Team Falcon, and it should be pretty easy to turn number 1, but Blythe's going to make him go the long way around the outside. Ellis switches directions to the inside, but not feeling too deep on the brakes. Just about gives Blythe a hit for measure, though, and I'm surprised Ellis didn't quite push that one even further, Zach.
Yeah, the fan club's going to have to put the pom-poms away for a few more corners at least, but Riley doing a really nice job to defend there, making Lee decide which way he wanted to go, and Lee at the end of the day not being able to make the move done. But Riley now defending very heavily to the inside, really doesn't want to let this position go. Lee doing a good job around the outside, but he's going to take tags on both the front and the rear from Blythe and from Chris Coxhead as well, who just wasn't quite anticipating the little checkup there from Lee. And I mean, we've said this about Riley Blythe many, many times. He is relentless when it comes to his racecraft, but also very hard to intimidate Mr. Blythe. He doesn't often give you an inch when he's coming through, and he very rarely likes to give an inch when other people are coming through either, and he will do everything that he can now that he's out of a winning position to maintain that position. But the leaders now, Forzan El Nabi and Brett Loxton, are still going at it, and Loxton looking a little closer this time by than he has on rounds past, just 0.2 of a second behind Forzan El Nabi now as they come over the line, but again, just not quite close enough. Now, just to give you some reference, guys, Sam Sutton has been falling away ever so slightly lap after lap.
Oh, John Ross! John Ross completely sideways into turn number 1. Don't know how he kept it on the track, but he is going to lose a spot to Umashima. Zalowski just about going to bump draft Umashima down that long straight. Had to get out of the throttle just a bit. And it's all going off at the moment. Zalowski is thinking about it, but not able to do it. Zalowski up the inside, just about gets the position done. But we're hearing of more drama as well, as Lee Ellis is now all the way dumped down the back of this train, and it's going to lose a few more spots, Zach.
Yeah, we'll get a Cup Price Racing replay of that for you. And looks like Lee Ellis, it looks like Brady Myers actually went down the inside of both of them. And looks like Brady got a bit of a hip check from Riley Blythe there. And as Lee Ellis was trying to come through, he just got tagged by that TTL machine of Brady Myers. So looks like Lee's still out there circulating, having a bit of a battle now with Marie Hrushka and Thomas McMillan, who have had their troubles throughout this race. So the pom-poms can still stay on the barriers for the time being, but maybe shaken with a little less vigor than they previously would have been. But now it's, and Lee Ellis has just been touched again as he's trying to get past, or trying to defend actually, from Marie Hrushka, who is working her way back after having a bit of an abysmal start at the beginning of this race. And her car not looking particularly comfortable either, getting all sorts of crossed up as they come through the second last quarter. But we'll take you back up to the train at the front. Kyle Stokes having a little bit of a look on Brian Borg in his Synergy Sim racing car as Brian Borg in that cross-continental motorsports car, grabbing it and grabbing it again. Way amount of oversteer as they're coming out of turn number 3 there. And that is pretty much going to hand the position to Kyle Stokes. But Brian Borg, a valiant defender, trying to keep some momentum on that outside line. And now going to make Kyle go for the outside line as they come up into turn number 5. But looks like Kyle's just a little bit back there for his ability to make a move on Brian Borg, but now trying to fire it down the inside. And Brian Borg gives him the room. He thought he was going to make a bit of contact there, but Kyle Stokes applying some good pressure to Brian Borg, but just not able to find a way through at the moment. Meanwhile, Kazuki Umeshima still under immense pressure from Scott Szlowski as they both made a bit of a move on Jordan Ross when he made a mistake. And Scott Szlowski now has a nice toe up this back straight. Is he going to be able to do anything with it as they come down into turn number 1? The gap only 0.2 of a second, and Kazuki does not have a car ahead of him. So I think Scott Szlowski might have something on here. Is he going to go for the inside or the outside? Looks like he's going to try and go for the inside, a little bit far back, and have to be very confident on the brakes. And he is, goes down, fires it down in there. Kazuki taking a wide line, going to go for some good exit speed and carry some nice momentum through turn number 2 and 3. And he's still there. He definitely has the potential to make a move up into 4 here, but he's very sick sideways, and that's going to kill his run, and I think kill his opportunity to work back that position. And he's going to have to stay at the back of that All-Star Motorsports car for the next couple of corners.
It's almost one of those corners like Rouge, where in order to set up the move properly, you have to be far enough back. And I think Umeshima, just too close to the back of Szlowski there, needed to time his run a bit better, wasn't able to do it. So, like you say, has to be behind the All-Star Motorsports car for just a couple more corners. We know Umeshima willing to go for any opportunity, so we don't know when his next opportunity will be, because Umeshima tends to make his own a very aggressive driver, but he has to be careful because Jordan Ross is slowly creeping up to the back as well. So we'll see how that battle does go on. But Sam Blacklock, another driver making very good progress, and he's slowly been reeling in Sam Sutton. Last time around, it was not slowly at all. In fact, it was 0.3 of a second. So Blacklock in the next few laps will be able to make a challenge for that place on the podium. But the real question here is who's going to win this race, because at the moment, Forzen El Nabi still leading, but Brett Loxton well and truly keeping him under pressure, just 0.3 of a second behind, and they have all the room in the world to fight it out for this lead, Zach.
Yeah, and that gap that he's got is not too large, and that's going to keep the pressure on, as you said, for Forzen. He's not going to feel like he really has much room to move in terms of his speed. And it's kind of hard to say how much these guys are pushing each other right now, although it has to be said, the lap times are pretty good. Still, even after another 10 laps, as we mentioned earlier, they were still doing low 34s. They still are doing low 34s. Sam Sutton and Sam Blacklock have dropped off a little bit. They're in the mid to high 34s now, and I would really be interested to see what Kazuki Umeshima could do if he had some clear track and no pressure, because he has the fastest lap of this race so far by nearly half a second and has been putting in some pretty impressive lap times otherwise. I think his fastest lap was on lap number 5 or so, and everyone else's was closer to the 2nd or 3rd lap. And we're just hearing as well that Corey Preston has gone for a bit of an alternate strategy, maybe thinking that the tires are going to fall off dramatically in the next 14 laps. He has made a pit stop, and he has made a pit stop for tires only, unless he forgot to put full fuel in the car, but he has definitely put tires on. So we'll have to see how that works, because at this rate you would need approximately 2 seconds a lap to be making back that pit stop, and judging from what we've seen so far, I don't think he's going to get that. But Corey could very well prove us wrong, but we will have to wait for a few more laps before we see how he starts progressing on those.
Jordan Ross and Kazuki Umeshima into turn number 1, and Umeshima lost that spot to Jordan Ross, trying to find it back, but around the outside of turn number 1, Not going to get it there, but he has got a much wider run through turn number 3. Can carry the momentum, but he's got all kinds of sick sideways through that turn number 3. So much opposite lock there and completely killed his run. I thought for sure he was going to be able to throw that car into the barriers and have it race over. But just like Fernando Alonso in 2012, somehow keeps on track. And again, Umeshima, so sideways at the moment. So I think his rear tires are gone. And if that's the case, he's in a lot of trouble because there is still 13 and a half laps to go.
Yeah, there's still a third of the race to go. And he is looking like he is struggling massively. Jordan Ross, meanwhile, taking it way too deep into that corner there and getting a bit of understeer while he was at it. But I think you're quite right, Bo. I think now is the time where we're going to see who was really using their tyres at the beginning of this race and who was maybe saving them a little bit. Umeshima has got none of those rears left unless he's been making some adjustments to the car on the fly, which has just really not been suiting him. But we have seen for the last few laps pretty consistently that he has been getting it right out there and getting the rear of that car almost facing the wrong way. But very entertaining for us, but definitely not fast, and he has lost quite a few positions and hasn't been able to reclaim any due to that style of driving. Sam Sutton looking a little slow compared to the leaders as well, and Blacklock just not quite having the pace on that lap to make any inroads towards Sutton either. So still got another 10 laps, and he has been closing in bit by bit, and I think he's just worked his way into the slipstream of Sutton in the last lap or two. So that's going to give him a little more motivation and a little more speed to get up there. And yeah, Sutton is not very comfortable with that gap that he has back to Blacklock though, and that's evident by how hard he was pushing there through turn number 5. And few of these cars starting to show the battle scars. Blacklock with a bit of damage on the left-hand side of the car after getting bumps from pretty much everyone inside the top 5. And Forzan El Nabi, our leader, has a bit of damage too. Brett Loxton actually carrying a fairly clean car, although he has been rubbing panels a little bit as well. But those guys looking very smooth at the front, not looking like they've been using up their tyres much. Maybe Forzan saving everything till the end, or maybe Loxton is, but Loxton's definitely stayed on pace throughout the second stage of this event than we probably would have expected.
Yeah, absolutely. But one driver I do just quickly want to put a bit of a spotlight on at the moment is Kyle Stokes. He's been really, really quick these last few laps, actually matching the leader's lap times quite consistently. So a lot of pace in that Synergy sim racing car. Of course, Kyle very recently did move over to Synergy, and he is showing a lot of pace right now. Brian Borg in the slipstream going with him, but these guys are catching Kazuki Umeshima and Jordan Ross just in front quite rapidly at the moment. So Kyle Stokes must have saved his tyres quite a lot. Of course, he wasn't involved in the massive battle pack at the start of the race, as he just makes a bit of a mistake there, which might give Brian Borg a bit of a run. Kyle Stokes clearly does not like the spotlight put on him at all, blinding him in fact, because Brian Borg will be able to go through. So there's a position change right there for absolutely commentators. Jinx you, Kyle, I'm so sorry. But they've been looking after their tyres, and that's what's beginning to actually give them quite a bit of an advantage as Sam Blacklock finds his way onto the back of Sam Sutton. It's a battle of the Sam, Zach.
Yeah, these guys are going to be having it on for old and young, I think, because they've had a bit of a biff earlier in this race, and I think Sam's really, really keen to get back on the podium after such a strong start and such a unfortunate first stint of that race. So he's now got the slipstream and now closing himself up onto the back of Sam Sutton. And these two drivers in very, very much a rivalry between these two teams, I would imagine, TTL and TTR. And Sam Blacklock goes up the inside very late and confident on the brakes, and Sutton just going to give him a bit of a rub as they come through turn number 2 and 3 here. So Sutton now has an opportunity, if he can keep it on the road, to just tuck back in and maybe go for a move and 4, but unfortunately just understeering in the wake of the car behind him and backing out early, and maybe just trying to save his tyres for the end of the race so that he doesn't come under attack from the likes of Scott Cieslewski, who's been putting in some pretty decent lap times as well behind these guys.
Yes, Cieslewski's really done a very nice job just to hold on to his tyres quite a bit, and that will favour him in the last few laps of the race, but at the moment doesn't quite have the pace to make himself in this battle pack for P number 3 at the moment between the two Sams. So we'll wait and see if Cieslewski can do anything in his final few laps just to get that gap down. But I think at the moment it'll be a little bit too much for Cieslewski compared to the likes of Sutton and Blacklock. But Brett Loxton very recently did drop off the back of El Nabi quite a lot. The gap was down to about, to about 0.8 of a second at one point. But over that last lap, did get it back down to 0.2 of a second. And for the last 3 consecutive laps now has been the faster of the two drivers. So Loxton, we heard, before the race, we were talking to another driver who said that Loxton would fade towards the end of the race. But at the moment, Zach, I think he's well and truly coming back at Forza and El Nabi, and we very well could have a grandstand finish here with just 10 laps to go now.
Yeah, he dropped a 10th on that lap, but, when you're running within 3 to 4 tenths of the car ahead of you, that's kind of to be expected. And yeah, as you said, I mean, he could be, maybe he learned quite a bit from that last race. Maybe he's made a couple of setup changes, or he's been adjusting the car on the fly, adjusting the roll bars to more suit the later part of this stint and to extend the life of those tires a little bit, possibly even changed his driving style slightly as well to ensure that he wasn't getting as much wheel spin in the early stages of the race so that he could save those tires more for the end. But he definitely is looking very strong right now, and looking a little stronger, in fact, than Forzan, who's just making a couple of tiny mistakes here, and that gap is starting to close back down close to 3/10. I think.
Big crash on the front straight. Matt Morris absolutely drilled the wall on the front straight. He was coming under pressure from Corey Preston and absolutely drilled the wall. Big crash, and immediately escaped from the car. So Matt Morris having an absolutely horrible day. Sorry to cut across you there, Zach, but that was a big shunt.
Yeah, unfortunate to see there for Matt Morris. He's had some fairly good results, maybe not as of late, but as we've seen him in these V8 Supercars official iRacing Series races over the last couple of seasons, definitely hasn't put in some good results, but unfortunately for him, today will not be one of those days. Just noticing as well, Brendan Jackson's been working his way up through the field, plus 11 positions since the beginning of this race. And while there has been a bit of attrition, he has been working himself up to the back of Marie Hrushka, who's been looking to struggle a little bit in the last few laps, now dipping into the 36s in terms of lap times. Most other cars on the track are at the very least doing 35s. In fact, she is one of few cars in the 36s right now. And Brendan Jackson, we saw last week, had a bit of last lap action, and he's going to go for a move in there. But we've got Coxhead and Blythe on screen for you now as they go side by side through turn number 4, one of our favorite spots of the day. And Riley Blythe managing to, not quite get around there, and looks like Coxhead's going to have the preferred line, and Blythe copping another little hit. So another little hip check there for Blythe as he comes through turn number 6 there. And it's been a bit of a rough old day for Blythe, but that's what happens when you, not necessarily all the time, but when you don't leave your competitors a lot of room, there is that potential for that to happen. We will go back to that battle I was talking to you about before of Brendan Jackson and Marie Hrushka, and Marie going very defensive in her All-Star Motorsports car, and her teammate McMillan is doing a flick spin just ahead of her. And yeah, very, very, interesting rejoin there. Luckily, he had a bit of a gap to Reese Keane behind, but very awkward re-entry back onto the track. But Marie's struggling in that All-Star Motorsports car tonight. Just noticed, particularly in the last section of the track, does seem to be losing rear traction quite a bit. And now Riley Blythe has gone back up the inside of Chris Coxhead through turn number 1. And so long as he can keep up momentum, although Chris Coxhead doing a very nice job to stay on the traction, and Riley Blythe just getting a little too eager, stepping the side of the car out. And Chris Coxhead now going to go down the inside of turn number 4. So Can Riley Blythe use the same strategy that Coxhead used last time? Doesn't look like he can, being hung out to dry, and he's going to have to try. And Coxhead just struggling for grip. Can't put the foot down fully all the way through there. And now Riley Blythe bumping Coxhead up through turn number 5 and 6 and going to fire it down the inside at turn number 7. And going to have to go the long way around through this corner here. Able to hold on. They will give him the inside for the next double right-hander, but unfortunately, Coxhead has covered it off, although Riley's going to go right in deep, take a very tight line, and makes it through. Coxhead now going to go for the round the outside. He's going to be very bold to go around there. Going to have to be very, very careful on the throttle as they come through here, doing a very nice job. Both of them side by side now through the final corner, so this is going to be a drag race all the way up to the finish line. Riley Blythe's going to have a slight advantage. He doesn't have as much track to cover as Chris Coxhead does, although Chris having to travel a longer distance might end up with a little bit more top speed towards the end of the straight, so we'll see how we go side by side as they come over the line. Lucky it's not the last lap for Riley Blythe, or he would have been counted position number 11, but he has the inside for number 1, just locks the rears a little bit, but manages to pull it up just in time to make the corner. And Chris Coxhead now is going to do it again. He's going to try and go around the outside, keep that momentum going. And Riley Blythe, if he can stay steady on the throttle, which he does this time, can take that inside line. And these guys having a fantastic little scrap for this last lap.
Absolutely. So we'll see if Coxhead can make anything of it around the outside. Not easy to do. Pushed onto the AstroTurf. So a bit traction limited there, as well as Blythe tries to hold it. But now he's at the disadvantage on the outside of this very fast right-hander. And Coxhead very easily able to just clear it. Now you're going to see Blythe just try and keep it nice and tight and fire it down to the inside, but Coxhead wiser to that move, so just blocks it off just a little bit and gets all kinds of sideways on the exit to boot as well. So these guys having a fantastic fight as Marie Hrushka and Brendan Jackson now having the exact same battle. Hrushka on the inside through the fast right-hander. Jackson having to make it work on the outside, not able to do it at the moment. Side by side still, but Hrushka just about muscles Brendan Jackson away and not able to get that position done, but Hrushka still struggling quite a lot, not able to get the rear tires working for her, and just losing a lot of time. She was very strong in qualifying, but has begun to fade just a little bit. We haven't seen her in too many of these races. Of course, just started this season, I believe, in the V8 Supercar, so perhaps still a bit of an experience in keeping the tires together, but we'll all find out if Brendan Jackson can make a move through this long left-hander, get on the power, and he just got a bit of wheel spin, so it's going to have to wait for yet another lap.
Yeah, I think I do recall seeing Marie in maybe a couple of races last season, but now that she has the help or the power of a strong team behind her, she should be able to make good progress throughout the next couple of seasons, and I'm looking forward to seeing if she can make herself up into the top 5 and one day get a race victory in these iRacing V8 Supercar official series. But we're going back to Coxhead and Blythe now, who are still lap after lap fighting over position number 10 and 11. And right now it's advantage to Chris Coxhead. He's marginally in front, but Riley Blythe once again going for that very deep line at turn number 7 and going to have to go round the outside now. Going to try and make that work, and he's got it up enough now that he can have a much nicer line through turn number 10. And Coxhead once again though doing a really good job to stay there. He's going to have the inside line, and now Riley's going to try and take the momentum through the second last corner. He's going to try and go for the nice exit here and really get himself nicely ahead. But now guys, we're going to take you back a little further up the grid to Blacklock and Sutton, because Blacklock has not been able to get away from Sutton, and putting a bit of a move on him into turn 1. And now Sislowski's there as well. And we mentioned Sislowski had been kind of just chilling behind and putting in some decent lap times. And now he's right on the back of these guys and has an opportunity to mix it up if one of these two makes a mistake.
Absolutely, and with 5 laps to go now, it is a pressure cooker, and mistakes will slowly begin to happen. So we'll wait and see if Sislowski can make anything of this. Sutton and Blacklock been fighting it out for a lot of laps, using a lot of their tires, while Sislowski just able to hold on to a bit more. But we never guess who's side by side. It's Chris Coxhead and Riley Blythe into turn number 4, and Coxhead quite deep on the brakes, getting the job done, but Riley Blythe sends it right back with a crossover and gets that move done straight away, and with no overlap can take his preferred line through this long right-hander at turn number 6. So we'll just see if Coxhead can do anything. It's the slow section of track, but these guys have had so many moves in the last few laps, and of course Coxhead has a bit of a look on the inside, but not able to make it work this time around. So Riley Blythe finally getting that position done. Well, we don't know whose position it was originally, but all I know is they're still fighting extremely hard to not be the first car outside of the top 10.
Yeah, they've overtaken each other about 20 times now. I've definitely forgotten who owned that position originally, but Blacklock now is coming under a lot of pressure from Sutton, who has a good run coming down the main straight, and Blacklock going to kind of half-heartedly go for that defensive line. It's half-heartedly enough that Sutton's going to go for a little bit of overlap around the outside, cut back in, and try and get some nice momentum through turn number 3. And this is one of the critical parts about getting the overtake done for 4, is making sure that you keep the traction going through 3. And Blacklock has done a very nice job there to keep up the speed and not overcook it, and managing to hold on to the position for the time being. Coxhead, in the meantime, getting through on Riley Blythe as these guys just continue to go at it, but Blythe getting it back, and now Coxhead is going to go around the outside at turn number 4 again, and is there a single corner that these guys haven't overtaken each other at? Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like they've been trading places pretty much every corner for the last 5 laps. But if Riley Blythe can get a little bit of a gap, he might be able to work himself away.
Oh, Coxhead!
Big lockup, and that's a mistake enough. So now Riley Blythe really has to concentrate to make sure he hits his marks. He doesn't have much in terms of pressure coming from behind. He just has to make sure that he has a decent gap coming into the main straight so that he doesn't lose out on that slipstream. But once again, Sam Sutton coming up behind Blacklock, and much better run this time. Already within a car length of Blacklock, so he's going to go. Blacklock taking the inside line, going to run him to the wall, forcing Sutton to the outside. Zizlowski's going to wander in the back and think about which way he's going to decide to go. I think he'll try and take the inside line. Sutton just barely scraping the back of Blacklock's rear bumper as they come through too. And Sutton not getting a very good line through 3, massively sideways. So can Zizlowski now capitalize on that? Sutton going to go to the inside of the track, force Zizlowski the long way round. We have seen a lot of guys going for the momentum on the exit of that corner and making it work. Zizlowski maybe doesn't have the experience of a few other drivers yet, and has decided to pull out of that move, or maybe just waiting for the 2 ahead of him to spice up a little bit more before he really thinks about digging into anything. But Sam Blacklock has the advantage of the Sams right now, but Sutton has definitely been nipping at the heels the last few laps, and if he can maintain that close gap as they come onto the main straight, it's going to be very questionable as to who's going to be the last spot on the podium tonight.
Absolutely, especially with the 3 drivers here, as close they are. And Zizlowski really looks the most threatening at the moment, getting so close to the back of Sutton. And with his tyre life, perhaps he would be the best shot at getting past Blacklock if he is slowly beginning to struggle. So we'll see how their exits are, and they're both pretty even, but Zizlowski, with that better tyre grip, might just have a bit more kilometers an hour down this long straight to make a move at turn number 1 as he slowly gains. But the issue here is that Sutton, of course, still has a slipstream to Blacklock, so he's not going to have the same advantage that Sutton had on Blacklock, but he's still going to look to the inside at turn number 1, but not going to get too brave on the brakes, just like Sutton is, who almost manages to...
Yeah, there's a bit of a touch there, and Blacklock has... They both... And oh no, Blacklock's been hit twice, and Sutton is the relative winner out of that, and Umashima gets through as well as Ross Borg. But Zizlowski, after doing such a great job all race, and Sutton just went a little bit deep under brakes there, and maybe Blacklock quite slow on the apex of 1, which is fair enough. He wants to set himself up for turn number 2 and 3, but unfortunately not working out for any of those drivers there. We'll get a cut-priced Karts Racing replay for you of that one, and as we can see, Sutton just getting a little too deep while Blacklock was slow at the apex, which again is fair enough. And as Blacklock was trying to recover, just clipped Zizlowski, who was trying to avoid everything there. So unfortunate for those guys, but The leaders are about to start the final lap, and Brett Loxton has been there or thereabouts, but just on this last lap has actually lost out 0.2 of a second. The gap now 0.55 as they're coming up to the finish line. But Brett Loxton's been doing a really good job to keep it in this race. But Forzan El Nabi right now has the advantage, and without a big mistake, I think he might have it all tied up tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw Forzan El Nabi get a great result last time out in V8 Scops. So I'm trying not to spoil it for you, but a very good result for him. And he'll definitely have a lot of confidence. So just needs to hit his marks in this final lap. And he should be able to walk away with this race. But at the start of this race, I did say that you don't exactly need a full tank of fuel to make it home in this race. So if any one of these drivers has just short fueled a little bit and maybe a little bit tight on fuel, that could make things interesting, because the start-finish straight is very uphill as well. So a lot of elevation change that would definitely be willing to slow down any V8 Supercar that is running out of fuel, as Riley Blythe and Chris Coxhagen. You never believe what they're fighting like, and if they're trying to be nice to each other. Of course they're not. It's the last lap, side by side, trying to make it work into turn number 4 is Chris Coxhead, who finally made that gap up to Riley Blythe. Down the inside, contact made as well. But Coxhead does indeed go through. But we will go back to our race leaders, because they are through the final few sections of corners. And Brett Loxton has just about got that gap down a little bit by about half a tenth. So he's been pushing on this last lap, but it wasn't quite enough, because the driver of the number 2 car here at Interlagos has been so successful on this Interlagos weekend. Yesterday, he got a great result, and he's going to back it up with yet another one, because around the final little kink on the straight, Forzan El Nabi is going to take race victory here in round number 8 of the Monday night Strength of Field series. Brett Loxton brings it home for P number 2, and Sam Sutton, well, he almost did a Bradbury. When everything else went wrong, he will come home in P number 3 as Coxhead and Blythe made contact, and Blythe gets put out into the grass, and Coxhead there will be able to walk away that race, but he has decided, I think, there's a bit too much contact. He wants to redress it, but the issue is that Brady Myers now is closing in. He wants to redress, but he has to not lose the spot to Myers. Boxed in just about. Contact made. Riley Blythe tries to get it. And number 11.
Brady got DQ'd before he went over the line, I think. We'll have to see as Lee Ellis comes over the line, but Lee Ellis has jumped Brady Myers, so Brady Myers is going to finish 21st or thereabouts.
Second time in 3 weeks.
I don't think that I have ever seen in my entire life someone disqualified so close to the finish line. That was what, 3 meters? If that?
That was nothing. That was nothing. Unbelievable. As last few cars coming across the line now, Jay McKnight even in the grass as well, and he's coughing. McKnight's not going to make the finish.
Surely he's going to be able to run it. Oh, no, he's not. He's at the beginning of the hill.
He's done.
He's done. So Brady Myers will finish 20th position rather than 21st, thanks to a miscalculation in fuel by Jamie McKnight. But your winner tonight in this absolutely enthralling race at Interlagos, Forzan El Nabi for Trick Sim Sports. And very nice job from him. Brett Loxton, if I'm not mistaken, personal best result for an iRacing Strength of Field broadcast for Brett Loxton there in position number 2. So congratulations to Brett. And Sam Sutton, bit of controversy towards the end of the race there, but a podium is a podium for you, Mr. Sutton. So well done. Jordan Ross, after a lot of biffo throughout that race, finishes P4. Kazuki and Mishima coming out of nowhere in position number 5 after having a few troubles and running lower down the order. Brian Borg as well coming up through the order into 6. Kyle Stokes ended up in 7th position. Scott Sislowski, pardon me, after having that incident in the last couple of laps, managed to keep it number 8 at the end of the race for him. Sam Blacklock came home in 9th after starting on pole and having an absolute shocker of a race for all sorts of reasons. And Riley Blythe just managing to take position number 10 ahead of Chris Coxhead.
Yep, so Chris Coxhead in 11th, and an honorary 12th for Brady Myers, maybe? No, because 12th will go to Lee Ellis. Marie Hrushka comes home in position number 13 after a tough race for her. Brennan Jackson wasn't able to get the move done, but comes home with a solid P14 after qualifying in 27th. David Miller in P number 15 with Jacob Knight in 16th, Wayne Taylor in 17th, Reese Keane 18th, and Corey Preston, who tried to pit for new tyres, wasn't able to make the strategy work, with Brady Myers eventually classified in position number 20. McKnight so close to making it home, but the fuel wasn't to be for the Evolution Racing Team driver. McMillan came into issues late in that race, unfortunately, around the 15th position. Matt Morris involved in that big shunt on the start-finish line, and not sure what happened to Greg Sharp, but a disappointing 24th for him, with Craig Jones, Steve Jansen, Tiago Carvalho, and Michael Taliantis, your 28 V8 supercars that just about finished Interlagos, Zach.
Yeah, I think Craig was one of the CMR cars Craig and Greg were both the CMR cars involved at that incident at the beginning of the race. So probably had succumbed to damage from that. But I'm a little lost for words over that whole race. I mean, wow. What can you say? It was exciting. I don't have a voice left. I'm not going to be able to speak tomorrow. And Forzan El Nabi came away with a pretty spectacular victory.
Yep, absolutely. So very nice from Forzan El Nabi, and very much having a lot of love for Interlagos, I would think. Brett Loxton still celebrating after the race, doing donuts for his position number 2. So good to see everyone is happy. But from us here at V8 Online, it's going to be a pretty busy week. Live on the iRacing Esports Network on Wednesday night, we have the Porsche Super Cup Australia, and they're going to be taking on Watkins Boot Classic. Just like we saw the GT3s do last time, they're going to be doing it in the Porsches this time, and that's going to be a lot of fun because those Porsches can be pretty sketchy when coming up the hill. On Friday, for the Australian Online Supercars Championship, the Daytona 650. And how good is that going to be to see the V8 Supercars taking on Daytona International Speedway, the road course version, but still going to be very cool to see them taking on what I believe will be, for one of the first times at least, a Roval circuit here on V8 Online. And on Sunday, the Majors Spa, 2.4 hours. And that's going to be a very exciting race. The GT3s are going to be out in force. And Spa is always a magical place to drive a GT3, isn't it, Zach?
Yes, unfortunately, my last run there in the 24-hour wasn't as magical as I would have hoped, but it's always, Spa's it's the driver's track, isn't it? I don't think there are many people you can go up to and you say, oh, do you like driving Spa? And they go, not really. There's not really many people who are like that, and they're probably just a bit weird, but always fun to be in a downforce car when you're going around Spa. It is a magical place. As long as you manage to not completely destroy yourself at Eau Rouge, everyone generally stays pretty happy.
Yep, absolutely. And like you say, a lot of downforce needed to get your car working through Eau Rouge quite nicely. But downforce doesn't exist in these V8 supercars, which will be returning once again for the Monday night Strength of Field series at Daytona Road Course. So going to be very exciting to see how they perform. And they're going to have a lot of practice with AOC on Friday as well. So it will be a very competitive round of the championship, I would think. But from myself here at V8 Online, thank you so much for watching on behalf of Zach and, of course, Jay Kennedy doing the director's booth. A fantastic race, I think we can all agree today, on the iRacing Esports Network. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Brand new channel, still growing, and might even have a few little more bits of content coming in the next few weeks as well. But as well, like the stream, always good to see support on these. But from us here, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.